Good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News. Well, good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this Prayer with Friday. And it has been an interesting week. It's been an interesting month. But let's start and get into it with our trending topics on X. This first video that I want to get to, it's AOC, right? I don't agree with her on a lot of things. But on these data centers, yeah, got to give it up. Got to give it up to her. She is actually doing her job. Let's see what she's got to say.
I have a jar right here. This is the current drinking water in Morgan County, Georgia. Right after a data center was constructed, the Meta data center was constructed, the only difference between the clean water and this was that data center. I have another one as well. So this wasn't just one well. These wasn't just one family's situation. This is what the drinking water now looks like next to that data center. And I think both of us can agree that neither one of these things are drinkable. These families now have to ship, in a rural area, have to ship water to their house in order to cook and bathe themselves. Now, I'm curious if the EPA plans any investigations on how data centers are affecting water quality and availability. I understand what you said about the rule, but are there going to be any open investigations on this issue?
So as soon as I get back to the office, I will be looking into exactly what you've just talked about, because anywhere, whatever type of construction it is a priority to ensure that water quality standards established by EPA are being met. And so we'll be looking into that certainly.
Thank you. I sincerely appreciate that because I think this is of utmost importance, and we're seeing this happening across the country. I'd also like to ask about the administration's push to build more data centers by fast-tracking construction. Because the administration's been issuing executive orders to fast-track data center construction when we know that water quality is encountering major issues. Are there any mandates for data centers to do water quality testing prior to construction?
No.
Of like coming from a public water supply, drinking water supply sampling?
Wells, yeah.
I'm not aware of anything like that. However, it doesn't mean I'm just not aware of it. It might exist,
Yes,
but I'm not
of
aware.
course. I think it's important that, you as an agency official, we have to make sure we're doing these investigations. Then us, on a congressional level, I'd like to note that I think it's of utmost importance that we also launch congressional investigations into this matter as well, so that we can partner with the EPA and ensure that the drinking water for this country continues to be safe and accessible for the American people. So thank you, Administrator.
Thank you.
Okay. So, I mean, those were nice words. Not saying that she was interesting, but she said the drinking water in Georgia looks like after Meta began data center construction in the community. Now, I went and ran this through Grok, and I basically asked, data centers are located, and the politicians, I said, oh, can you please outline what is happening with the water where these data centers are located and the politicians that are benefiting from these data centers? Because there's always somebody benefiting. So it's giving me an outline. She did this congressional hearing apparently yesterday, and it highlights the residents' complaints near Meta's Station Springs data center campus in rural Morgan County. It's about 60 miles east of Atlanta. Okay. So it's going towards, like, if you live in Georgia, like Loganville, Conyers, Covington, like that area that way. And it has become a major data center hub, 200 facilities operational, under construction, or planned, driven by cheap power, tax incentives, and climate. The two main water-related issues are localized quality complaints, the broader quantity usage strain, right? So water quality issues. Residents near Meta's facility report brown, sediment-laden water from private wells since construction blasting. Tree clearing and site work began in 2018 to 2020. So this began, 8 years ago? And we're just now talking about it. Okay. So they say it clogs appliances, filters, reduces pressure, and forces them to buy bottled water for drinking and cooking. Some blame vibration, runoff, or land disturbance from the 2.5 million square foot campus. So AOC visited the area, and the EPA official agreed to review Meta's site. What I find fascinating is this center uses a natural resource and there's no constraints around it. Like, nobody stopped to say, hey, what's going to happen to the water if you use it? Like, is it going to be repurposed? Whose fault is it? Right? Before we start just digging in and making all these data centers, what's the aftermath? And it just, I don't know. It's shocking, completely above my pay grade, right, at this juncture. But I find it shocking that nobody, not even the EPA, was like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this until we figure out how not to destroy the natural resources that are already here with this data center. It is so crazy. And Bloomify, hello. And Zero David Bayou says the water issue is primarily with the extremely high purity water used, right, to build the silicon itself. The data centers, trying to read, data centers aren't ideal, but aren't the main issue. Okay. You cannot use AI and regulate word salad to do legitimate research without checking sources. Let's see, the biggest issue with the deployment of these data centers is power. We simply do not have the wattage required to power the promised infrastructure. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. And the word salad, that primarily comes from, and again, in my opinion, nobody really took out the time to outline what does it look like on a 5-year plan, right? Start to finish, construction, completion of the data center, within a 5-year time frame. What does the quality of life look for the residents in the area? What does it do to the environment in the area? Like, what is really happening? And that's the downside to a lot of this. So, Meta Response and Counter Evidence, the company uses only municipal utility water, not groundwater wells, for operations and constructions. An independent groundwater study um, they commissioned found no adverse impact from their activities on local wells. Some locals and commuters attribute it to typical construction issues, cracked well casing, sediment from any heavy building, or drought. It's not a system wide municipal water problem. Well, and we don't know how long these systems of, the water systems in place. Let's just say if they're overused or agitated or disrupted, what disruption is it causing? Because years ago, it was prior to 2018, in Georgia, they had to go through one city and redo the drainage system because it was so old. I think it was like over 100 years old or something like that. And I'm going, whoa, really? Y'all waited. You waited basically till it broke and it just couldn't do it anymore. And you're like, hey, let's replace it. Yeah, my goodness. So this appears isolated to private wells near active construction sites, not ongoing operational pollution or widespread drinking contamination. So water quality usage issues. The data centers need, excuse me, my nose. I don't know what it is. I've been sneezing so much this morning. And I'm not sick. I've got some dust going on here. One meta site in Newton County, and that's where Fayetteville is located, or not Newton County. Newton County is, I want to say, next to Coweta County, right? They're next to each other. Uses 500,000 gallons a day, about 10% of the county's total water. Proposals elsewhere have sought 5 to 9 million gallons a day. It's wow. Okay, that's a lot. So, recent incident in Fayetteville in 2025 during drought, residents in Annalise Park noticed low water pressure. Fayette County officials discovered 2 unmetered industrial hookups at a large Quality Technology Services Blackstone-owned data center campus. Had used 29 to 30 million gallons, enough for 44 Olympic pools over several months without proper billing or full tracking. So one hookup was installed without utility knowledge. QTS paid a retroactive $147,000 bill for construction activities like concrete dust control. Residents had been asked to conserve water at the same time. This fueled outrage. Fayetteville later banned new data centers citywide. And I can understand why. It's like you come in and you disrupt everything, but at the same time, you're like, well, we can't be held responsible. It's really, really crazy. So politicians who benefit, right? I just wanted to know, like, who's benefiting from this? It's like $2.5 billion in estimate cost. So Brian Kemp strongly supported it in 2024. Even the Lieutenant or Burt Jones, and he's a governor candidate. He's directly tied. His family land is part of a proposed massive $10 billion highway project in Butts County, including up to 11 million square foot of data centers, plus hospital and services. It could use 4.5 million gallons of water a day. Okay, 92 million in a year in taxes, but promises $92 million a year in taxes. Jones is described as a very pro data center. I don't like the data centers because, in my opinion, what do they really bring? Broader Republican-led legislatures may frame it as job, tax revenue, wins for rural areas, pushback, right? Senator Rashawn Kemp, a Democrat in Atlanta, a Data Center Transparency Act to ban NDAs on water, electricity usage and required disclosures, moratoriums on new projects, early sunset of tax credits, and tying incentives to efficiency water conservation. Democrats like Representative Debbie Buckner and some Republicans have sponsored limits. It's now a flashpoint in 2026 in the governor's race. Who benefits most? Primarily the data center developers, tech giants via tax savings, and politicians who can claim credit for economic growth, tax revenue in their districts. No widespread evidence of direct personal enrichment in public records, but industry ties and campaign dynamics do play a role. Environmental conservation groups and affected residents argue the cost outweigh benefits for everyday Georgians. Bottom line, the brown water in the clip is a real resident complaint tied to construction disruption near Meta's site. Debated causation under EPA review, but the deeper issue is water quantity. Data centers, high demand exacerbating drought and infrastructure strains across the state. Now, I also asked this other question. I said, what are the primary functions of the data centers and how do they contribute to humans? So, data centers are specialized facilities that house servers, storage systems, networking equipment, and supporting infrastructure, cooling, power, security to store, process, and distribute vast amounts of digital data. They serve as the physical backbone of the modern digital world, enabling everything from everyday internet use to advanced AI applications. Data centers perform several core roles: data storage and management, to securely store enormous volumes of data, petabytes and exabytes for businesses, governments, and individuals. This includes databases, backup, archives, and compliance. It's interesting to me because I'm like, we didn't have data centers before, and we were doing okay, right? We're doing all right. But now we need these massive data centers. It just, to me, it's just weird. But data processing and computing servers run calculation, applications, or workload. This ranges from simple tasks to complex ones. Networking and data dissemination. They route internet traffic, support cloud services, enable content delivery, and facilitate real-time communication. But we had this before the data centers again. I'm just, I'm like, okay, do we always have data centers? And I just wasn't aware. Just saying. Disaster recovery and redundancy. They provide backup systems, failover capabilities, and high availability. Cloud computing and virtualization, right? Modern data centers deliver scalable virtual resources on demand to places like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google Meta that use them at a hyperscale. So, how data centers contribute to humans? Data centers have transformed society by powering the digital economy and enabling technological progress. Okay. Everyday digital life, making it possible to stream. Okay. Economic growth and jobs, innovation and scientific advancement, health, education, and public services, global connectivity and productivity. So, scale and impact. There are thousands of data centers worldwide, over 4,000 in the US alone. AI and cloud growth are driving explosive expansion. So, in short, data centers are essential infrastructure for the information age, much like power plants or roads, quietly enabling the convenience, innovations, and economic opportunities we rely on daily. And so I asked another question. I said, so will the data centers eventually become a utility that humans have to pay for? He says, no. Data centers themselves are unlikely to become a direct utility that individual humans subscribe to and pay a monthly bill for. They are private or corporate owned infrastructure facilities, not public utilities regulated in the same way. However, you are already indirectly paying for them in many places through higher electricity, right? And sometimes water bills. And this trend is accelerating with AI growth, right? So this is how it affects humans and what they pay. So indirect costs via electricity rates. Data centers consume enormous electricity for servers and cooling. Utilities often build new power plants. This is what Georgia Power is doing. They're expanding the power lines, right? This is what the whole easement argument is about. Grid upgrades to serve them. So in high density areas, this has driven significant rate increases. Wholesale power prices have risen sharply, up 267% in some data center heavy regions. So projections, data centers could use 6.7 to 12% of total US electricity by 2028 and 2030, doubling or tripling current demand. Water usage, similar localized pressures on water utilities or rates in drought prone areas, though electricity is the bigger widespread issue. Who benefits and who pays? Tech companies, Meta, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, get the computing power for AI, cloud services, streaming, etc. Residents often subsidize the infrastructure build out unless policies change. Okay, so policy pushback. Many states are reforming rules so data centers pay their full cost up front. Dedicated rate classes, longer contracts. Examples include Georgia new PSC rule, Virginia, Minnesota, and others aiming to growth pays for growth. In Georgia, utilities like Georgia Power claim large users now cover costs and may even lower residential rates long term via added revenue. And see, they say this up front, but I'm like, no, I want to see the trajectory. I want to see the forecasting. I want it laid out. Where does the discount come? Because see, they told these people the same thing about what solar power. Yeah, get these panels on your house and it'll save you. People are still paying for the solar panels, paying for the battery for the solar panels to lower their energy costs, but it's higher, but their energy bill is higher because they're paying for this equipment. And their utility bill still hasn't gone down. It's actually higher. So what are we talking about? That's all I'm saying. Make it make sense and show us the forecast. I think we can handle it. I think we can. It's not a new utility in the long-term outlook. So the bottom line, humans won't get a separate data center bill, but the digital services they enable, which we all use, come with rising energy infrastructure costs that are increasingly visible on your utility statements. The debate is active, focused on making big tech pay fairly rather than turning data centers into a public utility. And that's the thing, they're indirectly a utility because obviously the more energy being used, it is going to drive up the cost. It's not going to lower the cost. I'm like, just pay them. If you want these data centers, they're so bad, data companies, they should be paying more. So the utility bill for the residents should be less. That's just where I'm at. Next trending topic. Sorry I spent so long on that, but I thought it was important. NAACP urges Black athletes to boycott the SEC schools, which I think this is weird. So the NCAA's Out of Bounds campaign launched May 19th, targets public universities in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas, including SEC giants like Alabama, Auburn, and LSU. It responds to a 6-3 Supreme Court ruling on April 29th that struck down Louisiana's majority Black congressional district, prompting Republican-led states to redraw maps that could dilute Black representation before 2026 midterms. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and the Congressional Black Caucus joined the call, labeling the maps Jim Crow-like and urging sports conferences to speak out. While critics like podcaster John Whitlock and Representative Burgess Owens decry it as exploiting athletes for politics, and they are. The babies have nothing to do with this. They have nothing to do with this. You have failed policies. You lost in certain areas where you should be doing better because you keep promising people with melanated skin and you want to put everybody as Black Americans and not. Okay, so stop it. You've lost the power. You've lost the power edge, and now you're whining, and now you want to bring other innocent people into your failure to fail more. It's not going to work. This is dumb. So what's the boycott going to do? Mess up some people's lives, right? When they were on a trajectory to go to certain schools, right? To finish out their career, because you don't care about these people's careers. You don't care. You just want to whine as much as you possibly can. So the bottom 3 candidates were endorsed by the NAACP. The top 3 candidates were not. The NAACP is into partisan politics, not Black representation. Don't let them lie and say anything different. So these 3 women were not supported by the NAACP. And they're melanated. I'm just saying, because that's always the decry, right? We need more melanated representation. Okay. And I say melanated, and I don't call these people Black because I don't know what their lineage is. So I don't know if they're American Negro or not. So I'm not going to say that they are, period. I'm just not. That's why I say melanated. All right. Now, these 3 were totally endorsed by the NAACP. She wants to tax people out of existence. I don't even know what these 2 guys are doing down there, but this is who the NAACP supported. So why are you asking Black athletes to do anything for you, Democratic Party? Babies, if you're listening, don't listen to these crazy people. Just keep it pushing. All right. Now I want to get into the Promethean update for today.
Massey defeat, or the Trump win, let's put it that way, in Kentucky. Look, people have got to put themselves in the real fight. First of all, it's extremely insulting to the voters in Thomas Massey's district to imply that they're being bought by Israeli money. First of all, the total amount of money spent in that was $30 million. It was big, but I saw people say, oh, $30 million was spent to defeat Massey. No, the breakdown was $17 million for the president's choice and $13 million for Massey. But this whole idea that this is Israel running our policies is just a pile of BS, because what people voted for in Kentucky is somebody who wants to advance the president's program and not block it every step of the way. And this is extremely important. What is the president's program? The president's program is the American system. The American system is where you use the power of government to protect your people and protect your producers from this British imperial system. That is MAGA. MAGA is the American system. Now, let me tell you what MAGA isn't. MAGA isn't libertarian, because libertarian is an ideology cooked up through von Mises and the Chicago School and the Austrian School, and it comes straight from British philosophical liberalism. And it basically says markets rule, the invisible hand rules, which to me is a pretty pagan idea. So libertarianism is not MAGA. Obviously, rhinos are not MAGA, because rhinos are back in the old Wall Street, budget balancing, free market, perpetual wars. Something else that isn't MAGA, Convention of States, which is getting a new lease on life out there. What is the problem with all of those, with libertarianism, rhinos, and Convention of States? They all live in the world of the British system. That's the basis of libertarianism. That's the basis of the neocons and the Wall Street crowd and so on. It's also the basis of the Convention of States. They're living inside the British imperial system, which includes the Federal Reserve and includes the power of the City of London. And they just say, oh, this system is broken, so we have to change our constitution. Newsflash, how about this? Yeah, that system is broken. Why don't we go back to the one our founding fathers gave us, called the American system? And that's what MAGA is. And that's what we have to make clear, because the Psy war is at a fever pitch right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with what she's saying, because if you really look at, okay, let's make America great again, let's get back to the basics. Let's actually look at what was outlined in the Constitution the way it is, right? Stop putting policies and all these other executive orders and everything on top of the Constitution to dilute the Constitution. Let's just follow the Constitution. It's not a bad thing. It really isn't. It really, really isn't. Now, the next video I want to get into is from Doc Rich, and this is Peyton Jackson. She's actually running for Jasmine Crockett's old house seat that Jasmine Crockett was district out of when they did the whole redistricting map.
This is absolutely on point. I want y'all to check out this next clip and let me know what you think about it, because she is speaking some facts and bringing all the receipts to back it up. Check it out.
Changing the map is one thing, but if President Trump is successful in fixing our census, making sure that only U.S. citizens are counted in the census, there will be little to no Democrat districts. But thank you for your time, Council. You can go ahead and call your next speaker. But honestly, we have no one to blame but ourselves. Because while the average voter politically gangbangs, repping red or blue, just to defend their idols, politicians who seem devoted to destruction. By 1945, income tax became the primary revenue source for the federal government. Morally bankrupt, considering that taxes were meant to be temporary. Yet in 2026, we have federal income tax, property tax, payroll tax, sales tax, business tax, fuel tax, food tax, car tax, all of the taxes, hotel tax if you own an Airbnb. And on top of all of that, the majority of the states in this great nation have state tax. We have dumped tea for less. And by the time I was born in the 90s, the tax code grew by thousands of pages. Once a nation founded on escaping the abuse of taxation now funds politicians, their salaries, their car notes, their vacations, their nonprofits, their mistresses, even. Extorting housing and income for foolishness, while claiming that we have a housing or income or rental crisis, is a bit ill-considered. I sit back and I wonder how we can have a governor waste millions of dollars on a temporary measure, convincing half of the people, 51% of the turnout, that 10-to-1 is a fair map. Attempting to strip you away from your First Amendment while literally attacking your Second Amendment. Suffice it to say, it doesn't matter if you identify as Democrat or Republican. We have dumped tea for less.
Yeah.
Now,
And she's not wrong. She's not wrong. But definitely check her out. She's on X. Her name is Peyton Jackson, and she is running for, I want to say, I think it's Dallas-Fort Worth. I could be wrong. But it is Jasmine Crockett's old seat, and the way the congressional district was redrawn, I think it put Jasmine like right outside. But then Jasmine decided to run for Senate. People told her not to. She ran anyway. She relinquished her seat, so she is not coming back, as far as we know. So the next video I wanted to share with you guys, now this is about a big topic that a lot of people come across, which is separating church and state.
Religious Liberty Commission, which was established by executive order by Donald Trump. It was stated by the head chair that the separation of church and state is a lie. A statement which the vice chair of that commission, Dr. Benjamin Carson, not only agreed with, but he added to it by stating he doesn't see any reason why the two can't work together to promote godly principles. Now that might sound good to many of you out there, but what you and these individuals are failing to understand is that when you destroy the separation of church and state, you're opening up the floodgates for religious persecution in the United States of America, such as never has been seen before since the tyranny that was exercised by the Roman Catholic Church during the Dark Ages, when they held the reins of religio-political supremacy. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States of America was established because men and women were fleeing religious persecution that came as a result of the union of church and state in the old world. And now here in the United States of America, we're running in the same path of destruction? Listen, listen. In the book of Revelation, chapter 13 and verse 12, we were forewarned that the USA would exercise all the power of the first beast before it and cause the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. What we're looking at right now is the prophetic establishment of the image of the beast. And when this happens, the United States of America will legislate a day of worship, which will be the implementation of the prophetic mark of the beast. And as a result of this, individuals will be penalized, fined, and even have their lives threatened. Ladies and gentlemen, the only people that will stand in the crisis that's right before us are those whom, according to Revelation chapter 13 and verse 8, will have their names written in the Lamb's book of life. I hope your name is recorded there. And whether you like it or not, the truth is the truth.
Yeah. And if you want to find out more about what he's talking about, there's a book called The National Sunday Law. And in that book, it does outline how we will eventually get to a point where if you do not worship on Sunday, you could be arrested. Now, I know it sounds weird, right? There's a lot of things that we say now that sounded weird. We didn't think we were going to get locked up in our houses over a virus, right? But it happened. I'm just saying, be spiritually mindful and prepared, because the National Sunday Law is a little bit different. A lot of people say, well, it's great to go to church on Sunday. No, I don't think you hear what I'm saying. It's a demand. You have to go. And if you don't go, you're going to lose your freedom. Like I said, we live in a country where the First Amendment says all men are created equal, and yet we have separate civil rights for certain individuals to incorporate them under that First Amendment. Like it doesn't make sense, does it? Right. So the National Sunday Law, look out for it. Now, this last topic that I want to get into, it's about some books that you might find good to read and educate yourself.
Them people don't want you to read. And I'm surprised they haven't banned the fifth one yet. Number 1 is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. This book was so controversial that it was actually banned for 70 years. Probably because it said that the school system and the religious systems are specifically created to keep you from thinking for yourself. The major key: stop drifting and own your own mind. Number 2 is Unscripted by M.J. DeMarco. This is the book that your boss would never want you to read. This book gives you clear instructions on how to switch your mindset from that of a consumer to becoming a producer. We get a little bit dark at number 3 with Get Anyone to Do Anything. A wise man once said, with great power comes great responsibility. This book straight up teaches you exactly what the title says it's going to teach you. Now, you could either use this for evil, or you could use it to make sure that evil is not done to you. Number 4 is What Everybody Is Saying by Joe Navarro. 93% of all human communication is nonverbal. Once you learn how to read body language, it's almost like gaining a superpower. Number 5 is Making of a Slave, or it's also known as the Willie Lynch Letter. This book breaks down exactly how to mentally enslave people by turning them against each other using age, gender, and color. But when you read this, you'll finally learn to see the divide and conquer tactics being used against you every single day. And we don't gatekeep over here, so if you know any rare or controversial books that might help open people's eyes, leave them in the comment section.
Yeah, the last one with the Willie Lynch, I was like, oh wow, we're doing that right now. we're doing that right now in spades and triplicates and whatever else you'd like to say. I'm like, whoa, that one hit pretty hard. And on this Prayer with Friday, our focus here on the show is to make sure that we're really looking at what we can pray about to bring about change in our country, in our world, with our politicians, with different world leaders. And it's time for us to get back to prayer. And a lot of people say, oh, we just pray. Our prayers are powerful because our prayers get answered. Okay? So we need to make sure that we stay focused and prayerful, because the prayers of a righteous man availeth much. And with that, let's get into it. God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you so much for the week, just getting us through the week, Father. We are praying, God, for a wonderful new beginning, praying for our family, for our friends, for the individuals I mentioned, the politicians, the world leaders, God. There are so many things happening, and there are things that do need to happen, Father, before Jesus returns for the fulfillment of the law, right? Everything that Jesus died for, he died for the worst of us. God, an innocent man who did nothing but loved us enough to give his life. So, Father, we pray for those that are out there that need healing, to heal their hearts, that need comforting, to comfort them, Father, that just need someone to listen to them, that there's somebody there to listen, God. And we're so grateful for everything that you've done and everything that you are going to continue to do, Father. And it's in Jesus, Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. So you guys, remember to have a great, wonderful weekend. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.